Let's start with the most crucial detail in this report. Both engines shutting down mid-air, Mr. Singh. Technically speaking, how can that even happen? Are there inbuilt safeguards to prevent fuel cutoff during flight?
This is a very unique and a remote possibility because the fuel cutoff switches are guarded. Basically, they have kind of a lock. You have spring-loaded. You have to lift them up, then operate. So it cannot happen that somebody accidentally puts their hand or it inadvertently moves. So it has to be a deliberate move for it to move from cutoff to run or run to cutoff. So there is a mechanical issue as well, which is listed initially in the report about the service bulletin, wherein the locks could fail on certain parts, and that part was also there on this aircraft. Now, Air India did not carry out the mandatory, it was not mandatory actually, it was an advisory. So that's why Air India did not carry out the checks on the locks. So at first, this mechanical part has to be ruled out. Then we have to look at the human factor. So there were two pilots. Now, the report does not say which pilot said, "Why did you cut off?" Because initially, the co-pilot was flying, which means the captain was doing the pilot not flying duties. Whereas when both engines fail, all the instruments from the co-pilot side go blank, so pilot has to take over. So all these little details which connect the dots are missing from the report. There are no timestamps on the CVR transcript, the two sentences, so we don't know when they were spoken. And there was a 10-second gap between the engines, the fuel cutoff switches to off, and then back to switching them on. So what was happening in those 10 seconds, which is the crucial time when the engine could have been revived, had they been put on earlier? So why did the crew not notice them? What were the indications in terms of failure warning, fault warning given by the aircraft systems to the crew that there's a possibility that these fuel cutoff switches are in the off position? Or did they actually realize it 10 seconds later? So what was going on in the cockpit? So the report does not give a lot of information. Neither does it give the flight data recorder information. It just gives snippets of information. So it's very difficult to make a good analysis at this point.
Right. Mr. Singh, let me ask you this. Sir, how much time or altitude do you realistically need to attempt recovery? I'm asking this because the AAIB report mentions that both switches were flipped back to run within seconds and one engine partially came back. From a pilot's point of view, what's the standard emergency protocol in that situation?
So the moment they were switched off, had they realized they are in the off position, and because at that time the engine was running at high speed. So higher the speed, the higher the possibility of the engine revival. So if you switch the fuel cutoff switches on, the fuel flows, the ignition is there, and the computers attempt a relight. So the possibility of the relight are higher at higher speed. If you delay by 10 seconds, like what happened in this case, even then the left engine started reviving, but it was too late because the engines are so huge. They got big blades and they need time to start rotating. So that wasn't enough. Otherwise, one engine is good enough to fly the aircraft. Had they got a few seconds more, they would have probably sailed through. So it was only a few seconds between the disaster and getting away with it.
Right. Let me also ask you this, speaking about the Boeing 7878, we're talking about Boeing 7878, sir, a modern aircraft with multiple redundancies. Are you surprised that both engines went out and could not be recovered despite emergency systems like the RAD deploying?
This is a very surprising case and a unique case because dual engine failure we have seen only about 3 or 4 in the history. And this is One after the Hudson, after the Sully's case in the Hudson, but that was because of a bullet. And this is on account of either a mechanical failure or a deliberate move because of a human factor. Now, we don't know how many people were there. Was there another person who's not supposed to be there? Because there have been cases in the U.S. wherein a jump seat pilot who was sitting as a third pilot, while flying, he decided to shut down the engines, but he was overpowered by the pilots. But this was a very critical phase of flight when the aircraft is just getting airborne. So was there a third person? So that has not been ruled out by the report. So they haven't said who is talking in the CDR. They just listed two sentences. So unless all these details are there, like I said, it is very difficult. Even the Ethiopian report had a 33-page report with more data in it. This one is a very concise report, and nothing much can be deciphered from here.
Right, Amit, you mentioned that plane could have worked even with one engine as well. And that's a very important point. Aircraft like the Dreamliner are built to fly safely even with just one engine. But in this case, it seems like the crew just did not have the time or altitude to stabilize even the one engine that partially came back. Would it be fair to say that if they had been a few hundred feet higher, the outcome might have been different?
Yes, of course. It would have been the whole scenario would have been different. It would have been a close shave. Like I said, had they got a few seconds, had they put the few switches on a few seconds earlier, or had they gained a few hundred feet more, then they would have the engine, left engine would have revived, and the aircraft is certified to fly with one engine. So that could have happened.
We now know that both engines failed seconds after takeoff and the aircraft never climbed beyond a few hundred feet. From a civil aviation safety standpoint, does this indicate a deeper issue with aircraft system design or redundancy logic? Mr. Kaul.
Actually, it's very difficult to say at this stage. I've not even read the release, but what I've heard is that the fuel switches were turned off and then turned on, and in the meantime the fuel couldn't go. And even the rat, which was lower, which powers, was not able to have enough thrust to continue the climb. So why the fuel was turned off is not clear. Why should a very senior pilot, do it unless it was done by an accident, by movement of hand or something? Because it seems also that they had a discussion between the pilot and the co-pilot, and he asked the co-pilot, "Have you turned it off?" And he said no. But we are still not very clear what exactly happened in the cockpit, although the cockpit recorder has been found and looked into, and that's on the basis of that this is coming out, which one has to still read in black and white. I've just heard about it. So that is my view just now. But if it is only because of the fuel being turned off, it's very odd that this has happened. It never happens in the normal course. It was done by the pilot, I presume. Yeah.
Right, Mr. Kaul, the RAM air turbine deployed automatically, which means the aircraft entered emergency mode within seconds. Is that common?
No, it's not. You're talking about the rat.
Right.
Yes, yeah. No, it was lowered, obviously, I think, by the pilot to at least gain thrust when the engines were not working. Get some. So it's very rare that the rat is brought down. That of course is there. So pilot did his job to use the last available tool in his hand. That is the use of rat. Yeah.
Right. Mr. Kaul, cockpit audio reveals one pilot asking, "Why did you cut off?" and the other one denying it, saying, "I did not do it." In your experience, how do regulators really interpret such cockpit confusion, especially in high stress phases like takeoff?
I really don't. I can't say. It's very odd that this has happened. I don't think even the regulators will have a problem in trying to interpret. I mean, the obvious thing is that the commander of the plane is asking the co-pilot, why did you turn it off? Well, that's simple, but I mean, did it really happen? What happened? It doesn't really normally happen. So it's very difficult to give a clear view on the subject.